Well-organized cybercriminals lust after the big bucks, so hijacking business systems for cryptocurrency mining is on the decline, and business email compromise is now the thing. Special feature Cyber War and the Future of Cybersecurity. Today's security threats have expanded in scope and seriousness. There can now be millions, or even billions, of dollars at risk when information security isn't handled properly. Read more. Surreptitious mining continues to be feasible when the goal is shifted from the now processor-heavy Bitcoin to Monero and other currencies. But the payoff can still be bigger elsewhere, according to Chris Tappan, a Sydney-based principal consultant with Verizon's Threat Research Advisory Center (VTRAC). If you're going to commit cybercrimes and you're going to get access to someone's web server, there's more you can do now which has got a better return, which is going off and compromising email accounts, Tappan told ZDNet this week. To compromise a web server and run software on it, you've got to have fairly good access to it. So only do some cryptocurrency mining. It's a bit of an anticlimax, he said. Crypto mining gets a lot of media time, but we're not seeing in our dataset that it's as much of a concern as things like the business email compromise. Tappan is referring to the dataset that informs Verizon's annual Data Breach Investigations Report (DBIR), now in its 12th year. This year, the much-respected report is an analysis of 41,686 security incidents, with information contributed by 73 organizations. It reveals that attacks by nation-state actors are up. Nation-states and parties affiliated with them now represent 23% of data breaches. That's certainly a worry. But for this writer, the DBIR's numbers around business email compromise are a bigger worry. For incidents involving an actual data breach, the use of stolen login credentials was by far the most common way to break in, with a web application being the most common pathway. Utilizing valid credentials to pop web applications is not exactly avant-garde, Verizon wrote. The reason it becomes noteworthy is that 60% of the time, the compromised web application vector was the front-end to cloud-based email servers. Last month, the FBI reported that business losses to back scams had doubled in 2018 and the attacks are becoming more sophisticated. Cybercriminals scored $1.3 billion from U.S. companies alone. Global losses hit $12.5 billion, the FBI reported, which is $3 billion more than Trend Micro's prediction. According to Tappan, however, the real figure is probably much higher as many BEC losses don't get reported. A lot of those obviously don't get disclosed, they just get tidied up. We've worked on several very large ones that there was never any consideration of disclosing those to law enforcement, Tappan said. It was just written off as a business loss and everyone kind of carried on and didn't want to talk about it, and was quite embarrassed by what happened. Phishing remains the #1 method for stealing login credentials. We're seeing more of these targeted phishing campaigns, spear phishing, whaling, whatever you want to call it, where specific individuals are targeted, Tappan told ZDNet. Things like two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication are really still the priorities for kind of businesses both in Australia and globally. Then, as always, there's the human factor. We've known for years that phishing works, and continues to work, because it exploits weaknesses in human psychology and organizational culture, even on matters of national culture. When employees fall for a phish, they're usually away from the desks, using mobile devices which don't necessarily display the email in full. Cybercriminals are now smart enough to target the right people in the organization, people with authorization over payments and their executive assistants. And they're smart enough to try to get to the targets when they're likely to be on their mobile device. For me, the thing that people should be focusing on with the security spend is the boring stuff, Tappan said. Have you trained users about phishing? Have you gone back to the principle of least privilege? Have you got an incident response plan? Have you ever tried it out? Also, let's block ads. Why?